Welcome to Galactic Nova Stories, where cosmic emotions come to life. Your journey begins now. The light in the subterranean chamber pulsed with an unnatural rhythm, casting eerie shadows across the crystalline walls. At its center, suspended in a web of gleaming neural tethers, floated Empress Vela. Her once radiant skin had faded to a pale blue, her 6 eyes, capable of perceiving multiple dimensions, now dimmed to a dull glow. The crown of psychic amplifiers that had once channeled her benevolent will throughout the Luminary Empire now served as her prison, extracting her power while suppressing her consciousness. "Increase the extraction field," commanded Prime Minister Dawn as he entered the chamber, his tall, slender form silhouetted against the corridor's light. "The delegates from the Orion sector are proving difficult to persuade." The technicians, their fingers dancing across translucent control panels, complied without question. Vela's body convulsed as her psionic energy was forcibly channeled through the palace's communication systems. "Excellent," Dawn murmured, watching the monitors as they displayed representatives from 17 star systems reaching unexpected consensus on trade agreements highly favorable to the Luminary. "The Empress continues to serve her empire, whether she wishes to or not." 3 cycles had passed since Dawn's meticulously orchestrated coup. 3 cycles since he had convinced the High Council that Vela's progressive policies, particularly her advocacy for diplomatic relations with physically weaker species, threatened Luminary supremacy. The official story claimed she had retreated into spiritual seclusion, a tradition respectable enough that no one dared question her absence. No one except her sister, Lyra, who had been silenced permanently. In her semi-conscious state, Vela perceived fragments of the outside world, diplomatic summits, trade negotiations, military deployments, all manipulated through the subtle application of her stolen psionic abilities. She felt her power being used to bend minds, to implant suggestions, to compel agreement where none would naturally exist. Above the palace, in the gleaming spires of the capital city, an intergalactic diplomatic conference was underway. Representatives from across the known galaxy gathered to discuss the increasingly dominant position of the Luminary Empire under its mysteriously reclusive Empress. "The Luminary delegation requests another recess," announced the conference moderator, a gelatinous being from the Hydra Nebula. "We will reconvene in 1 standard hour." In the corner of the vast chamber, a solitary figure remained seated while others filtered out. Unlike the exotic array of beings with their tentacles, wings, exoskeletons, and multidimensional appendages, he appeared remarkably plain, a human named Milo, attached to the Earth Diplomatic Corps as a data analyst. Milo's eyes narrowed as he reviewed the holographic transcripts of the day's negotiations. Something felt off about the Luminary proposals and the subsequent acceptance by traditionally stubborn delegations. Patterns emerged in his mind, subtle inconsistencies in the flow of logic, uncharacteristic concessions, linguistic anomalies. "You're still bothering with those figures?" A passing Luminary diplomat paused, all 6 eyes blinking in sequence. A gesture Milo had learned indicated amusement. "How quaint that your species still relies on such primitive analytical methods when the rest of us have evolved beyond them." Milo offered a polite smile. "We humans have our uses." "Indeed," the diplomat responded, with unmistakable condescension. "Every creature has its place in the cosmic hierarchy. Yours is just somewhat lower." As the diplomat glided away, Milo returned to his analysis. The Luminary had always viewed humans as evolutionary underachievers, bipedal mammals with no natural psionics, limited sensory perception, and laughably inefficient nervous systems. What they failed to appreciate was that these very limitations had forced humans to develop alternative strengths. And something in Milo's very human brain was telling him that the mighty Luminary Empire was hiding something important. Milo hunched over his datapad in his modest quarters, fingers flying across the surface as he compiled his observations. The diplomatic quarters assigned to humans were noticeably smaller than those given to other species, another subtle reminder of their perceived status in the galactic community. He didn't mind. The cramped space helped him focus. For 3 weeks he had been tracking minute fluctuations in the luminary negotiation patterns. His superiors dismissed his concerns as paranoia, but Milo possessed a distinctly human quality that had become rare in this age of technological dependence: intuition. Compile temporal analysis of energy consumption patterns for the Palace District, he instructed his datapad. The device hummed softly as it processed the request, pulling publicly available utility data from the Luminary Central Network. Across the room, his communication terminal chimed. The face of Ambassador Lee appeared on the screen, her expression stern. Analyst Milo, the Luminary Diplomatic Office has filed a complaint. They claim you've been asking inappropriate questions about their internal affairs. Again, Milo straightened his posture. With respect, Ambassador, something isn't right here. The energy readings from the palace show regular power surges that don't align with any known luminary technology. And I've been researching historical records. Empress Vela's sudden retreat contradicts everything about her previous governance style. The ambassador sighed. Not everyone appreciates your human tendency toward suspicion. The Luminari tolerate our presence because we control resources they need, not because they value our input. Don't jeopardize years of diplomatic progress because of a hunch. After the call ended, Milo returned to his analysis. The Luminari, like most advanced species, had evolved beyond verbal deception. Their psionic abilities made lying nearly impossible among their kind, which had made them particularly vulnerable to Dawn's machinations. They simply couldn't conceive of the elaborate conspiracy he had constructed. But humans were different. Evolutionary history had shaped them into natural skeptics, their minds resistant to telepathic influence, a trait the Luminari considered a defect rather than an advantage. During dinner in the communal dining hall, Milo overheard a conversation between 2 maintenance workers. Another power reroute to the sub-palace levels, one complained. 3rd time this month, whatever experiments they're running down there must be important. You know what they say, the other responded, lowering his voice. Those levels have been sealed since before the Empress went into seclusion. Official story is structural concerns, but nobody's allowed down there except Dawn's personal security team. Milo feigned interest in his meal while his mind raced. The palace was built upon the ruins of ancient luminary structures, with countless underground chambers and forgotten passages, perfect for hiding something or someone. That night, as the capital city gleamed under its 3 moons, Milo slipped out of his quarters. Using service corridors and maintenance shafts, he made his way to the public archives. The night attendant, a young luminary with still developing psionic abilities, barely glanced at his falsified research credentials. In the dim light of the archive's historical section, Milo discovered records of Empress Vela's reign. Her policies had indeed been progressive, particularly her controversial proposal to establish a permanent human embassy on the Luminari homeworld. The historical feeds abruptly ended shortly before her supposed retreat, with only vague references to spiritual renewal. More interesting was what Milo found in the architectural section: original schematics of the palace, including sub-levels now classified as restricted. One particular chamber, deep beneath the central spire, had been designated as a psionic amplification node, technology supposedly abandoned centuries ago as the Luminari evolved stronger natural abilities. As dawn approached, Milo returned to his quarters, mind buzzing with connections. Using his datapad, he overlaid the power fluctuation data with the ancient palace schematics. The correlation was unmistakable. Something, or someone in that chamber, was generating massive psionic energy, precisely when the Luminari were achieving their most improbable diplomatic victories. The following morning found Milo pacing his quarters, torn between duty and action. Protocol dictated reporting his findings through official channels, but instinct warned him that conventional approaches would fail. The Luminari system was built on psionic transparency among their own kind. They had no framework for addressing a conspiracy that shouldn't be possible in their society. His datapad displayed the dossier he had compiled overnight. Energy signatures consistent with psionic amplification technology, historical records of Empress Vela's progressive policies, including her unprecedented interest in human culture. The suspicious timing of her retreat coinciding with Prime Minister Dawn's rise to power. Computer, access medical database, comparative. Biology, Milo commanded. Display differential analysis of luminary and human neurological structure, the screen filled with comparative neural mappings. Where luminary brains featured dense clusters of psionic receiver nodes, human brains showed chaotic, unpredictable firing patterns, the neurological equivalent of static noise. This difference explained humanity's resistance to psionic influence and the luminaries' dismissive attitude toward them. Milo rubbed his temples. If his suspicions were correct, Empress Vela was being held captive, her psionic abilities harvested and weaponized. The implications were staggering. Interstellar agreements signed under psychic coercion, political alliances formed through mental manipulation, trade deals that inexplicably favored the luminari. The door chime interrupted his thoughts. Ambassador Lee entered without waiting for permission, her expression grave. "Your access to the archives has been flagged," she stated flatly. "The luminari are questioning your credentials. What exactly are you looking for?" Milo hesitated. The ambassador was a career diplomat, committed to maintaining Earth's precarious standing in the galactic community. Would she risk everything on his unproven theory? "I believe Empress Vela is being held prisoner beneath the palace," he said finally. "Prime Minister Dawn is using her psionic abilities to manipulate diplomatic negotiations." The ambassador's expression shifted from concern to alarm. "That's an extraordinary accusation against our hosts. Do you understand the repercussions if you're wrong? Earth could lose its provisional membership in the Galactic Concord." "And if I'm right?" Milo challenged. "We're participating in negotiations that are fundamentally corrupt." Ambassador Lee shook her head. "I'm ordering you to drop this investigation immediately, return to your assigned duties, or I'll have you recalled to Earth." After she left, Milo sat in silence, weighing his options. Disobeying a direct order meant the end of his diplomatic career, possibly criminal charges upon returning home. Yet something deeper than professional ambition drove him, the uniquely human compulsion to correct perceived injustice, even at personal cost. As twilight descended on the capital city, Milo felt a strange sensation, like a whisper brushing against his consciousness. He froze, recognizing the attempt at psionic contact that most humans would never perceive. The sensation came again, stronger, fragmented images and emotions rather than coherent thought. Pain, desperation, a fleeting glimpse of neural restraints and crystalline chambers. A plea for help. Milo closed his eyes, concentrating on the fragmentary contact. The luminari believed humans were psionic nulls, but the truth was more complex. Humans possessed a rudimentary sensitivity, not enough to send or receive clear communications, but sufficient to sense when someone was attempting contact. In that moment, Milo made his decision. If the imprisoned Empress had managed to sense his mind despite her restraints, perhaps his human neurological patterns, so different from her people's, made him invisible to the very systems designed to contain her. Perhaps a human, with all the limitations the luminari despised, was the only one who could help her. Milo began gathering supplies. His plan, like most human endeavors the luminari encountered, would rely not on elegant psionic abilities, but on improvisation, physical endurance, and sheer stubborn determination, the very qualities that had allowed humanity to survive on their harsh home planet. By morning, either he would have saved an empress and exposed a conspiracy, or he would have destroyed his career and Earth's diplomatic standing on nothing more than a hunch and a psychic whisper. The palace gardens shimmered under the light of 3 setting moons. Luminari nobles strolled along crystalline paths, their elegant forms gliding rather than walking, their thoughts harmonizing in the shared psionic field that connected their species. None noticed the human service worker pushing a maintenance cart along the perimeter, a perfect example of the luminari blind spot. Milo had discovered that the luminari security systems, like their society, were built around their strengths. Advanced psionic scanners detected unauthorized mental signatures. Quantum entanglement fields identified molecular disruptions. Phase shift barriers prevented teleportation, but simple physical infiltration by an unregistered biological entity? The concept was almost beneath consideration. Primitive problems require primitive solutions, Milo muttered to himself, checking the stolen service badge clipped to his uniform. The Luminari had advanced beyond the need for physical identification centuries ago, but they maintained legacy systems for the non-psionic species who served them. Beneath a cluster of bioluminescent trees, Milo located the maintenance access point indicated on the ancient schematics. The modern security system registered his badge with a soft chime, identifying him as authorized cleaning staff. The sophisticated AI never questioned why a member of the maintenance team would need access at this hour. Another oversight born of a civilization that had evolved beyond deception. The access shaft descended deep beneath the public levels of the palace. As Milo descended, the gleaming modern architecture gave way to older construction, crystalline composites yielding to carved stone and eventually to rough-hewn tunnels dating back to the pre-imperial era. The air grew dense with the smell of mineral deposits and ancient decay. His handlight cast long shadows as he navigated through chambers that hadn't seen visitors in centuries. Fragments of luminary history surrounded him, faded murals depicting evolutionary stages before they had developed their full psionic potential, primitive artifacts from when they had still relied on physical tools. One chamber contained a collection of fossilized remains, ancestral luminari with more substantial bodies and less developed cranial structures. Milo paused, struck by the evolutionary narrative displayed before him. The luminari had sacrificed physical resilience for mental power over successive generations, their bodies becoming more ethereal as their minds grew stronger. In that moment, Milo understood something fundamental about the species. Their contempt for humans wasn't merely cultural arrogance, it was existential insecurity. Humans represented the evolutionary path the luminari had abandoned, a physical hardiness they had sacrificed for psionic ability. A faint vibration disrupted his thoughts. Milo pressed himself against the wall as a patrol of security drones hummed past an intersection ahead. Unlike the upper levels, these tunnels contained active security measures, evidence that they led somewhere important. Consulting his datapad, Milo adjusted his route. The ancient schematics indicated a secondary maintenance tunnel that bypassed the main security checkpoint. The passage was narrow, designed for service mechanoids rather than biological entities, but his human frame, though bulky by luminari standards, could squeeze through. Hours passed as Milo navigated the labyrinthine understructure. Twice he encountered security measures that required creative solutions: a motion sensor disabled with reflective coating, a biochemical scanner fooled by samples collected from different palace life forms. When he finally reached the penultimate chamber before the psionic amplification node, Milo faced his first living opponents, two luminari guards stationed before a massive door of pulsing energy. Unlike the nobles above, these were military caste, their bodies more substantial, their psionic abilities weaponized rather than refined. A direct confrontation would be suicide. But Milo had studied luminari physiology. Their evolution had left them with certain vulnerabilities, particularly to sudden pressure changes and high-frequency sound. From his pack, Milo removed a small device of human manufacture, a sonic disruptor designed for excavation work. Luminari technology had advanced beyond such crude tools, making them blind to its potential as a weapon. When activated, the device emitted a piercing tone that sent both guards collapsing to the floor, their sensitive neural structures overwhelmed. Milo rushed forward, applying neural suppressors before they could recover or call for help. Beyond the guards lay the final barrier, a neural interface designed to admit only authorized luminari minds. No deception would work here. The system required direct psionic authentication that Milo could not provide. But where the luminari saw only limitation in human neurology, Milo saw opportunity. From his pack, he removed a device of his own design, hybrid of human electronics and salvaged luminari components. If he couldn't provide the required psionic signature, perhaps he could create interference that would confuse the security protocols. His hands trembled slightly as he placed the device. against the neural interface. The uniquely chaotic patterns of human brainwaves, amplified and channeled through the device, might register not as an unauthorized attempt at entry, but as system noise, a glitch rather than an attack. The interface pulsed with angry light, cycles of rejection and recalibration flickering across its surface. Sweat beaded on Milo's forehead as he adjusted parameters, channeling more of the static that made human minds so incomprehensible to luminary systems. With a sudden flash, the barrier destabilized, not deactivated, but disrupted enough to allow physical passage. Milo stepped through quickly, knowing the window would be brief. Beyond lay the secret at the heart of the luminary empire, a chamber of impossible geometry, where neural tethers converged on a single suspended figure. An empress in chains, her power harvested to control an empire that believed her gone. The chamber pulsed with bioneural energy, casting everything in a spectral blue glow. At its center, suspended in a web of psionic tethers, floated Empress Vela. Her form was more ethereal than Milo had expected, almost translucent, with 6 eyes arranged in a delicate pattern across her elongated face. The neural crown that should have amplified her natural abilities instead siphoned her power, feeding it into the palace's communication systems. Those eyes found him now, widening in what might have been shock or hope. When she spoke, her voice seemed to bypass his ears entirely, manifesting directly in his mind. "A human," she whispered, her mental voice fragile but clear. How unexpected. Milo approached cautiously, studying the complex array of neural interfaces that bound her. "Empress Vela, I'm Milo from Earth's Diplomatic Corps. I've been tracking energy anomalies and inconsistencies in luminary diplomatic behavior." A flicker of something like amusement crossed her features. "Always the observers, you humans, seeing patterns where we cannot." Her mental voice grew stronger. "Prime Minister Dawn orchestrated my imprisonment 3 cycles ago. He uses my abilities to influence minds throughout the Empire and beyond. I cannot free myself. The restraints are calibrated to my neural pattern." Milo removed his pack, retrieving tools he had assembled for this purpose. "That's why I'm here. The restraints are designed to contain a luminary mind, not a human one. My neural patterns might disrupt them enough to—" A sudden alarm pierced the chamber, its wailing pitch making Milo wince. The Empress's expression shifted to urgent fear. "Dawn knows you're here," she warned. "The security system is psionic. It felt your presence the moment you breached the final barrier." The main entrance to the chamber shimmered as a contingent of elite guards materialized. Led by a tall, imposing figure Milo recognized from diplomatic broadcasts, Prime Minister Dawn himself. Unlike the guards, who wielded conventional weapons, Dawn carried only a small neural amplifier, a device that would magnify his already considerable psionic abilities. "How remarkable," Dawn said, his actual voice cultured and calm in contrast to the chaos erupting around them. "A human, of all creatures, penetrating our most secure facility. Perhaps we have underestimated your species." Milo positioned himself between the Empress and the new arrivals. "The diplomatic community will be interested to learn that your negotiation tactics rely on imprisoned royalty." Dawn's 6 eyes blinked in sequence, the luminary equivalent of dismissive laughter. "By the time anyone could verify such claims, their minds will have been adjusted to accept our explanation. The Empress's abilities, properly channeled, make such adjustments quite seamless." As he spoke, the guards circled wider, cutting off potential escape routes. Milo assessed his options. The human sonic disruptor had limited charges remaining, enough to incapacitate some guards, but not all, and certainly not Dawn himself, who would be protected by psionic shields. "Curious," Dawn continued, studying Milo with genuine interest. "Our scans can barely detect your mental presence, your species. Neural patterns are so chaotic, like static against the ordered symphony of evolved minds. No wonder you stumbled upon our arrangement when others could not." Vela's mental voice touched Milo's consciousness again, weaker but insistent. "The primary neural junction behind you, disrupting it, would trigger a cascading failure in the restraint system, but you must—" Her communication cut off abruptly as Dawn raised his amplifier. sending a focused pulse of energy that tightened the Empress's restraints. She convulsed in silent agony. "Enough conversation," Dawn commanded. "Secure the human intruder. Alive if possible. I'm curious to study how his primitive mind penetrated our defenses." The guards advanced. In that moment, Milo made a decision. That highlighted the fundamental difference between humans and Luminari. Where the Luminari planned with perfect logical precision, humans excelled at improvisational chaos. He activated the sonic disruptor at its highest setting and threw it not at the guards, but at the ceiling's crystalline support structures. The resulting high-frequency vibration shattered the ancient crystals, sending fragments raining down upon the chamber. The guards scattered, their sensitive neural systems overwhelmed by the sudden chaos of sound and motion. Dawn raised a psionic shield, but his concentration was split between protecting himself and maintaining the Empress's restraints. Milo seized the moment of confusion to lunge toward the neural junction Vela had indicated, a pulsing node where dozens of tethers converged. Unlike the elegant control panels used throughout the palace, this was raw technology, vulnerable to physical disruption. As Milo's hands closed around the junction, Dawn recovered enough to send a psionic blast hurtling toward him. The impact sent Milo crashing against the junction housing, pain exploding through his body. But even as he fell, his weight and momentum accomplished what careful manipulation could not, the physical disruption of delicate neural circuitry. Sparks erupted from the damaged junction. The web of tethers restraining Empress Vela flickered and destabilized. For one terrible moment, everything hung in balance. Then the entire system collapsed, releasing a wave of pent-up psionic energy that swept through the chamber like a tsunami. The Luminari guards crumpled instantly, their minds overwhelmed. Dawn remained standing, protected by his amplifier, but his expression showed something Milo had never seen on a Luminari face: fear. As the neural restraints dissolved, Empress Vela descended slowly to the chamber floor, her form gaining solidity. As her power returned, when she looked at Milo, all six of her eyes blazed with restored energy. "You have freed me," she said, her mental voice now resonating with authority. "But we are not yet safe. Dawn's conditioning of the palace security systems will make escape difficult, and in my weakened state, I cannot overcome him directly." Milo struggled to his feet, wincing at what felt like several broken ribs. "Then we work together, my human unpredictability and your Luminari knowledge." Dawn laughed, a sound both beautiful and terrible. "How touching, the primitive and the fallen. Empress, neither of you fit to rule. The Empire has thrived under my guidance, achieving dominance that Vela's weak policies never could." As he spoke, more guards began materializing in the chamber, reinforcements summoned by the security breach. Vela glanced at Milo, a plan forming. Between them, without words, their unlikely alliance was about to be tested. Alarms blared throughout the sublevels as emergency containment protocols activated. Dawn's reinforcements materialized in waves, their weapons trained on the unlikely pair standing amid the ruins of the containment system. "Empress," Milo said, "urgently, we need to move." Vela nodded, but her movements remained unsteady, her form fluctuating between solidity and transparency. "My strength returns slowly. Years of imprisonment have weakened me more than I expected." Dawn advanced, his neural amplifier pulsing with gathered power. "Neither of you will leave this chamber. The Empress will be contained once more. And you, human, will provide fascinating research material." Without warning, Vela seized Milo's hand. The contact sent a jolt through his nervous system, not painful, but overwhelming, like plunging into an ocean of pure consciousness. Her voice filled his mind. "Your neural patterns so different from ours, I can use them to shield us both. But I must share consciousness with you. Will you permit this?" Milo nodded, understanding the implications. Among Luminari, consciousness sharing was sacred, reserved for family bonds and life mates. For Vela to propose it with a human was unprecedented. The connection bloomed between them, and Milo gasped as Vela's memories flooded his awareness. Centuries of experience compressed into moments: her ascension to the throne, Her growing interest in human culture, her discovery of ancient connections between their species that luminary history had carefully erased. Most shocking was the revelation of their shared genetic heritage. The memory showed Milo archaeological evidence, carefully suppressed, suggesting that humans and luminary had once been genetic cousins, their evolutionary paths diverging when the luminary homeworld was bathed in rare radiation that catalyzed psionic development. Impossible, Milo whispered aloud, though in their shared consciousness such verbalization was unnecessary. Truth, Vela responded simply. The foundation of Dawn's coup was fear. Fear that my research would reveal our common ancestry. The luminary built their civilization on the belief in their natural superiority. To discover that humans are not inferior but simply different, it would shatter the hierarchical structure of our society. Through their connection, Milo also witnessed how Dawn had manipulated existing prejudices against humans. He had staged incidents demonstrating human unpredictability, presented research suggesting human emotions were contagious and dangerous, and gradually convinced the High Council that Vela's pro-human policies threatened luminary purity. The coup had been meticulously planned. The Imperial Guard loyal to Vela systematically replaced, her closest advisors discredited, her sister silenced. When the moment came, Vela had been ambushed during a private meditation session, her psionic abilities temporarily diminished, allowing Dawn to apply the first neural restraints. The shared consciousness gave Milo something else, a basic understanding of luminary psionic techniques. Not enough to wield them himself, but sufficient to comprehend their principles and limitations. In the physical world, barely seconds had passed. Dawn's forces advanced cautiously, confused by the Empress's sudden stillness and the human's glazed expression. "Enough of this," Dawn commanded, raising his amplifier to full power. "Guards, secure them both." The consciousness sharing ended as abruptly as it had begun. Milo staggered, disoriented by the sudden return to singular awareness. But Vela stood, straighter, her form stabilizing. The brief connection had accelerated her recovery. "My restraints included a psionic dampening field," she explained quickly. "It's failing, but I need time to regain full strength." Milo nodded, understanding their priorities. "We need to reach the central communication hub. If we can broadcast the truth to the entire Empire at once, Dawn loses his advantage." Dawn's expression darkened. "Fire!" he ordered, and the guards unleashed a barrage of stun pulses toward them. Vela raised her hands, creating a wavering psionic barrier that absorbed the first volley, but the effort clearly strained her. "I cannot maintain this for long," she warned. Milo assessed their surroundings with newly informed eyes. The chamber's neural technology, designed to contain and channel psionic energy, could be repurposed. If the Empress could connect to it differently, not as a prisoner but as a user, it might amplify her recovering abilities enough to overcome Dawn's forces. "The secondary neural junction," he said, pointing to a relatively undamaged console nearby. "Can you interface with it voluntarily?" Vela followed his gaze, understanding immediately. "Yes, but doing so would leave me vulnerable. I would need protection while I establish the connection." Milo straightened, ignoring the pain from his injuries. "Protection is what humans do best." As Vela moved toward the secondary neural junction, Milo positioned himself between her and Dawn's forces. The guards hesitated, unused to facing an opponent who showed no fear despite overwhelming odds. In their experience, rational beings understood when they were outmatched, but humans had never been entirely rational by luminary standards. Milo seized a fallen guard's stun baton, activating it with a practiced motion. The weapon hummed to life, designed for luminary physiology but effective enough in human hands. His diplomatic training had included basic self-defense, another human peculiarity the luminary found quaint. "Subdue him," Dawn ordered, frustration edging his voice, "but preserve his neural functions intact." The first guard rushed forward, expecting minimal resistance. Instead, Milo sidestepped with surprising agility, using the luminary's momentum against him. A technique from Earth martial arts that exploited physical mass the luminary barely possessed. The guard sprawled ungracefully, unused to physical combat after centuries of relying on psionic attacks. Behind him, Vela had reached the neural junction. She placed her six-fingered hands upon its surface, wincing as residual energy from her imprisonment interfered with her attempt to establish a new connection. "This system remembers me as a prisoner," she called to Milo. "I must override those parameters, but it requires focus. Take whatever time you need," Milo replied, parrying an energy pulse with the stun baton. The impact sent vibrations up his arm, but he maintained his stance. Dawn watched with calculated interest. "Fascinating. Resilience," he observed. "Your species compensates for its psionic inadequacy with remarkable physical endurance. Perhaps we should have studied humans more carefully before dismissing them." More guards converged on Milo. Though he fought with creativity that confused their tactics, sheer numbers began to overwhelm him. A glancing energy pulse caught his shoulder, sending him stumbling to one knee. The guards pressed their advantage, two restraining his arms while another prepared a neural suppressor designed to incapacitate without damage. "Oh, your effort was admirable," Dawn said, stepping closer, "but ultimately futile. The Luminari have guided galactic civilization for millennia because we understand that evolution creates natural hierarchies. Some species are destined to lead, others to follow." As the neural suppressor descended toward Milo's forehead, something extraordinary happened. The chamber's lighting flickered, and a wave of energy radiated from the junction where Vela worked. The guards restraining Milo suddenly released him, stepping back with expressions of confusion. "What is happening?" Dawn demanded, turning toward Vela. The Empress stood transformed, her form now fully substantial, her six eyes glowing with restored power. The neural junction beneath her hands had reconfigured, its energy flowing into her rather than from her. "I have established connection with the palace systems," she announced, her mental voice now broadcasting throughout the chamber. "But I discovered something unexpected within the neural network, something created when Milo freed me." She extended a hand toward the human. "Come, complete what we began." Understanding without explanation, Milo rose and approached her. When their hands met again, the consciousness sharing resumed, but differently. This time Vela deliberately drew Milo's uniquely human thought patterns into the neural network. The effect was immediate and profound. Where Luminari neural technology was designed for their ordered, harmonic thought patterns, the introduction of human cognitive rhythms created something new, discordant, yet strangely beautiful, like complex counterpoint in music. Through their shared awareness, Milo understood what was happening. The palace's autonomous security system, designed to recognize and respond to Luminari mental signatures, encountered an unprecedented hybrid pattern. Vela's royal imprint combined with Milo's human cognition. The combination triggered emergency authentication protocols buried deep within the system's architecture. "The palace recognizes me," Vela explained through their link. "Not as I am now, but as I might have been, a Luminari mind expanded by human perspective. It believes me to be an evolutionary advancement of my own species." The security system, faced with contradictory imperatives, defaulted to its most fundamental programming: protect the rightful sovereign. Throughout the palace, neural networks recalibrated, recognizing Vela's hybrid signature as the highest authority. Dawn sensed the shift immediately. "No!" he shouted, raising his amplifier to maximum power. "System override, authorization prime. Minister, security protocol Omega." But his commands found no purchase. The security system, now aligned with Vela's hybrid presence, recognized Dawn not as legitimate authority, but as threat. Containment fields shimmered into existence around Dawn and his loyal guards, not harming them. Luminari technology was fundamentally non-lethal, but restraining them completely. "Impossible," Dawn whispered, his composure finally breaking. "A human mind cannot interface with Luminari technology. It lacks the necessary structure, the evolutionary refinement." Vela's response reverberated through the chamber. "Not interface, Prime Minister. Transform. What you perceive as evolutionary inferiority in humans is merely difference, a cognitive approach that evolved under different pressures than our own." Through their connection, Milo felt Vela extend her awareness throughout the palace communication systems. Across the Luminari homeworld, communication nodes activated, preparing to broadcast a message that would reveal Dawn's conspiracy to the entire Empire. But even as victory seemed assured, warning signals flashed through the neural network. Dawn had prepared for this possibility. Fail-safe protocols, hidden within the palace's most secure systems, began activating emergency measures designed to sever connections and erase evidence if his control was ever threatened. "He's trying to wipe the system," Milo warned through their link. "If those protocols complete, all evidence of your imprisonment disappears." Vela's determination flowed through their connection. "Then we must stop them. Together." Their joined consciousness plunged deeper into the palace systems, racing against Dawn's countermeasures. This was no longer simply an escape. It had become a battle for truth itself, fought across digital and psionic landscapes that neither human nor Luminari was fully equipped to navigate alone. But together, they formed something unprecedented, a hybrid consciousness that combined Luminari precision with human adaptability. Where the system presented ordered barriers, Vela's knowledge found paths around them. Where unexpected variables emerged, Milo's intuitive leaps suggested solutions no Luminari would consider. Through security layers and encryption, they pursued Dawn's fail-safes. The countdown to system purge continued relentlessly, but with each barrier overcome, they gained ground. In the physical chamber, both Milo and Vela stood motionless, their consciousnesses engaged in digital battle, while Dawn watched in impotent rage from within his containment field. The guards, receiving no further commands, remained in standby mode. The final security layer loomed before them, a psionic lock keyed specifically to Dawn's neural pattern. Vela's legitimate authority could not override it. Her connection to the palace systems extended only so far. "We cannot breach this conventionally," she admitted through their link. Milo studied the lock through their shared perception. Where Vela saw an impenetrable barrier, he saw something different, a structure built with assumptions about how minds worked. Luminari assumptions. "We don't need to breach it," he realized. "We need to convince it we're not breaching at all." An idea formed, not logical by Luminari standards, but embodying the lateral thinking humans had developed through millennia of overcoming limitations. "The lock expects a specific neural pattern," he explained. "But what if instead of trying to match the pattern, we present something so different it doesn't register as an attempt at all?" Understanding blossomed in their shared consciousness. Together, they crafted an approach that no single species could have conceived, using the chaotic static of human neural patterns as camouflage, while Vela's precision targeted the lock's fundamental parameters, not attacking the lock but changing how it perceived attacks altogether. The palace hummed with unprecedented energy as communication systems throughout the capital activated simultaneously. In the grand reception hall, where diplomatic negotiations had continued without knowledge of the drama unfolding below, ambassadors from 17 systems looked up in confusion as every display surface burst into light. The image of Empress Vela appeared, not in the formal regalia of state broadcasts, but as she truly was, bearing the subtle marks of her imprisonment, her expression resolute rather than serene. "People of the Luminari Empire and honored guests," her voice resonated through the palace and beyond, carried by communication relays to every corner of the homeworld. "I address you not from spiritual seclusion, but from captivity. For 3 cycles, Prime Minister Dawn has held me prisoner beneath the palace, harvesting my psionic abilities to manipulate the minds of our people and our allies." In the chamber beneath the palace, Dawn struggled against his containment field, his expression contorted with fury. "You'll destroy everything we've built," he shouted. "Centuries of Luminari dominance sacrificed for your naive idealism." Vela continued her broadcast, unheeding of his protests. "The evidence of this conspiracy now transfers to all High Council security channels. You will see for yourselves the truth of my words." Throughout the capital, confusion gave way to outrage as the evidence appeared on official channels. Records of Vela's imprisonment, documentation of psionic manipulation, proof of Dawn's methodical rise to power through deception. Most damning were the records of how he had used Vela's abilities to influence diplomatic negotiations, rendering countless agreements across the galaxy fundamentally invalid. In the diplomatic chamber, the Earth ambassador stood transfixed by the revelation, understanding now why her analyst's warnings had seemed so urgent. Around her, other ambassadors reacted with varying degrees of shock and anger as they realized their minds had been subtly influenced for years. Deep beneath the palace, Milo and Vela maintained their connection to the communication systems, ensuring the broadcast continued, despite frantic attempts by Dawn's loyalists to interrupt it. Their unique alliance, Luminary Precision, guided by human intuition, stayed one step ahead of each countermeasure. Citizens of the Empire, Vela continued, this revelation comes to you through unprecedented cooperation. My freedom and this broadcast were made possible by a human named Milo, a representative of a species our society has long regarded as primitive and inferior. The broadcast shifted, displaying Milo standing beside the Empress. Throughout the Iein's capital, Luminari watched in disbelief as a mere human was presented as the Empress's liberator. What you perceive as human weakness is merely difference, Vela explained. Their minds evolved to solve problems through creativity rather than psionic ability, to adapt through innovation rather than evolutionary specialization. Today, those very differences allowed a single human to accomplish what no Luminari could, to see through deception our society believed impossible, and to act with courage our controlled minds could not muster. In the palace's central security hub, the chief of Imperial forces watched the broadcast with growing certainty. Long loyal to Empress Vela, he had accepted her sudden retreat with reluctance. Now, seeing the evidence of Dawn's manipulation, he made his decision. Secure the Prime Minister's loyalists, he ordered his officers. The Empress has returned. Throughout the palace and capital, similar scenes unfolded as the balance of power shifted. Guards who had served Dawn without question now turned against him, their actions guided not by psionic compulsion, but by the simple power of revealed truth. In the subterranean chamber, Milo felt the shift through their connection to palace systems. It's working, he told Vela. Your people are responding. Vela nodded, but her expression remained grave. Dawn still has one final option. The neural amputation protocol, designed to protect the Empire if a sovereign's mind became compromised. If activated, it would sever my connection to the palace systems and potentially damage my psionic abilities permanently. As if summoned by her words, alarm signals flashed through their shared consciousness. Dawn had managed to activate an emergency communication device concealed within his neural amplifier. Authorization, Prime Minister. His voice rang with desperate authority. Execute Protocol Sovereign Shield. Authorization Code Obsidian 6-3 Ascendant. The palace systems hesitated, conflicting loyalties creating momentary paralysis. The protocol existed for legitimate protective purposes, to prevent a compromised ruler from maintaining control. Now it was being weaponized against the very sovereign it was designed to protect. Milo felt the system's indecision through their connection. It needs confirmation, he realized. The protocol requires verification that the sovereign is truly compromised. Vela's determination hardened. Then we must prove otherwise, not just to the system, but to everyone. Through their connection, she expanded the broadcast, no longer simply sharing evidence of her imprisonment, but opening her mind completely to her people. Luminary society was built on psionic transparency. Now Vela offered the ultimate demonstration of that principle. Her memories flowed outward, her early recognition of human potential, her discovery of the suppressed genetic connection between their species, her vision of an empire that led through cooperation rather than domination. Most powerfully, she shared the moment of her liberation when a human had risked everything not for personal gain, but from a sense of justice that transcended species. Across the Luminary homeworld, citizens experienced their Empress's ordeal firsthand. They felt her pain during imprisonment, her hope upon sensing Milo's uncontrolled mind, her awe at discovering human resilience up close. Through her perception, they saw humans not as lesser beings, but as different, evolved under different pressures to develop unique strengths. In the face of such complete transparency, Dawn's protocol faltered. The system could not identify the sovereign as compromised when her mind lay open for all to witness, her motives and experiences raw and undeniable. Dawn sensed his final gambit, failing. "You would destroy centuries of luminary supremacy," he accused Vela. "Make us equal with species that cannot match our evolved capabilities." "Not equal," Vela corrected, her voice calm despite the tension crackling through the chamber. "Complementary. Different paths of evolution, each with strengths the other lacks." She turned to Milo, their consciousnesses still joined, but the connection now gentling as the immediate crisis passed. "The human mind's chaos that you despise, Dawn. It brings innovation our ordered thoughts cannot conceive. Their physical resilience compensates for fragilities our evolution accepted as we developed psionic power." Throughout the palace, security forces arrived to take formal custody of Dawn and his loyalists. The containment fields deactivated as Imperial guards entered the chamber, their weapons trained on the fallen Prime Minister. As their connection to the palace systems completed its task, Vela gently withdrew her consciousness from Milo's. The separation left him momentarily disoriented, his perception narrowing back to single awareness after experiencing the broader luminary consciousness. "It is done," Vela said simply, addressing him now with vocal speech rather than thought. "My people know the truth." Milo nodded, suddenly aware of his physical exhaustion. Hours had passed since their mental battle began, though it had seemed like moments. "What happens now?" Vela considered the question as Imperial guards escorted Dawn from the chamber. Restoration, healing, and perhaps evolution of a different kind. She gestured toward the palace above. "The diplomatic summit will reconvene, this time with truly open minds. All agreements influenced by my captive abilities must be renegotiated honestly." "And humans?" Milo asked. "Will our status change?" "Profoundly," Vela confirmed. "Your actions today have demonstrated what I long suspected, that the traits we dismissed as primitive are in fact valuable adaptations, different from our own, but no less advanced." 1 week later, the diplomatic summit reconvened in the palace's grand chamber. This time, Empress Vela presided personally, her formal regalia complemented by subtle elements of human design, an unprecedented cultural acknowledgement. At her right hand stood Milo, elevated from analyst to full ambassador, his diplomatic credentials updated to reflect his new status as liaison between humanity and the luminary. "Distinguished representatives," Vela addressed the gathered diplomats, her voice carrying naturally rather than through psionic enhancement. "We convene today to begin anew. Recent events have revealed fundamental flaws in how the Luminary Empire has conducted relations with other species, flaws born of evolutionary arrogance rather than true understanding." She gestured toward Milo. "The liberation of our empire came not through superior psionic ability, but through traits we had dismissed as primitive: human creativity, adaptability, and physical resilience. In doing so, we have discovered a profound truth. Evolution follows many paths, each with its own wisdom." Throughout the chamber, delegates who had once accepted luminary superiority as natural fact now regarded their hosts with new perspective. The revelation of psionic manipulation had shaken the Empire's standing, but Vela's transparent handling of the crisis had opened possibilities for genuine cooperation. "Today," she continued, "we propose a new framework for galactic relations. One, based not on hierarchy of species, but on complementary strengths. The Luminari offer our psionic insights and technological advancement. In return, we seek the unique perspectives evolved under different conditions on worlds across the galaxy." She turned to Milo, acknowledging him with the formal six-eye blink of profound respect, a gesture never before offered to a human. "Ambassador Milo has agreed to lead a new initiative, a cultural and scientific exchange between humans and Luminari, exploring how our different evolutionary paths might complement each other." As the summit proceeded, Milo observed subtle but significant changes in how the Luminari interacted with other species. Where once they had projected subtle superiority, now they listened with genuine interest. The change was not universal. Centuries of cultural programming would take time to evolve, but the direction was clear. Later, in a quiet moment between sessions, Vela found Milo on one of the palace's crystalline balconies, watching the 3 moons rise over the capital city. "Your mind is troubled," she observed, no longer needing direct mental contact to read his expression. Milo smiled. "Just contemplating scale. One human noticed some inconsistencies, followed a hunch, and now an entire interstellar empire reconsiders its fundamental beliefs about evolution and species hierarchy." "Is that not the essence of humanity?" Vela asked. "To create change disproportionate to your numbers, to solve problems through unexpected means. These are the qualities I hoped to understand when I first began studying your species." "Before dawn intervened," Milo noted. "Before dawn," she agreed. "But perhaps the path we now walk is stronger for having overcome his resistance. Change without challenge rarely endures." Below them, the capital city pulsed with activity as luminary citizens adapted to new understandings of their place in the galaxy. No longer the unquestioned pinnacle of evolution, but one path among many, each with unique wisdom to offer. "The chains beneath the palace have been removed," Vela said after a moment of companionable silence. "Both the physical ones that bound me and the metaphorical ones that limited our perspective. Thanks to human intervention, we are all more free." Milo watched the moons climb higher, casting their triple light across the crystalline spires of the capital. Different paths, he mused, leading to the same stars.